You're live.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Summa. Today is what, August 5th?
Yeah.
The Feast of St. Agatha.
August, but February.
Oh, did I say August? Because of Agatha. The February 5th, the Feast of St. Agatha. Agatha's a great saint. Oh, by the way, obviously, I'm dressed different, so shock. We're hanging out here at the Hermitage. Joe and I had a good night last night, right? We went and had our burger, which was, how was that burger, Joe?
It was the best burger I've had in a long time.
Best burger you've had in a long time. Good. Yeah, it's pretty good. And it's one of my favorite places to go around here. And then we got some snow on the ground behind us. And we got some chilling, some coffee. We'll have to make more coffee after this. So you didn't get your real morning cup yet, Joe.
Well,
We'll get there. We're talking about the existence of God today. Pretty good topic. One might ask, oh, first of all, also we were late because Joe was showing me how to set up all the camera and stuff because he has to go back to his blessed wife and family at some point and can't do this for a living. That's why you need to join locals and give money so that Joe can do this all the time because it looks like it could possibly be a catastrophe. He was trying to show me everything, all the little steps to set up the camera, get it going, start the computer. And it reminded me of something. And I was thinking, man, I wish I could just stick Joe in this seat for a bit, just start teaching Summa, like we trade roles.
that
Because
sounds terrible.
it does sound terrible, just like it felt terrible for me
Right.
doing all this crap.
Oh, I understand it. I get it. I totally get it.
And now I'm going to have to do it when you're not around, which is fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just grumbling.
Yeah.
But it reminded me of a show once Sideshow Tramps did, and the guys got tired of me and my general Craigness. I can't remember what was happening. I was a lot different back then, so I'm sure I was being a jerk
A
or
little extra.
something a little extra, just a wee bit extra.
Mhm.
And then bands tend to get annoyed at the guy who's the singer at the front because that guy tends to get a lot of attention, you know?
Mhm.
And it's not merited. Like everybody's swinging the hammer, you know what I mean? Why does that guy, and especially the ladies in the front, and it gets a little annoying when that guy's getting attention and everybody's working the same way. And something like that may have happened. But all I know is we went to go back up on stage and they walked off and they were like, do it alone, buddy, And they also knew that I had real problems being in front of people. And I had like anxiety issues and fear of speaking in public. I was almost kicked out of the monastery because I wouldn't get up and read. Like the monks had to do a certain reading occasionally. And John Michael, the abbot of the monastery, was like, you would lose your vocation just because you won't under obedience. You have to get up and speak. You have to read the scripture reading at some point during your time here. And he goes, you would lose your vocation to not get up and speak? And I said, yeah. And it's not because I wanted to leave the monastery. It was that I was terrified to speak in public. He goes, even among your brothers and sisters who you see every day and know. And I said, yeah, I cannot do it. Can't do it. And he goes, okay, I give you dispensation, but look, you've got to get that fixed, Brother Peter. My name was Brother Peter in the monastery. So going from that to actually playing and being a musician on stage in front of people was horrific. I still can't believe I did it. And I don't know why exactly I did it, except I felt that God was calling me to be a musician and do stuff. That's why I left the monastery. And it was so hard. And the fellas knew it. And they're like, go up there alone, Mr. Hot Stuff, you know? And it was a big moment for me because I was terrified and I was also pissed that they'd done, and they're standing out in the audience like this. You know what I mean? Let's see the calliope crash to the ground. Let's see without us up there. And I'm not saying it was the best song ever, but I still did it. And it was okay. You know what I mean? And then that was a big deal for me too. That actually leads to be able to do this Daily Summa. I would not be able to sit here in front of a live feed and talk to you or anybody else in class comfortably like this, except for the sideshow tramps, and except for those fellows with their tough love saying, "Get up there, Mr. Fancy Pants." And I did it, you know. But of course, the show's always better with the whole band. It was just a learning experience that made me grow through suffering. See how I tied it all together? See, you think I'm just doing an aside. You think I'm just rambling, but I thought it all through. I was looking at the camera when you were doing that. You're looking at your phone.
I'm doing my job.
Probably watching cat videos.
Doing my job, you know.
Oh, doing your job. Okay. No, he's doing his job, guys. But that's why we need Elias and Paul and Asian here, so I can look at other people while you're over there doing your job.
Right. I'm still listening. I mean, I hear everything you're saying. It's like, I know you don't believe that.
I do believe it.
No, you don't believe
I believe it wholeheartedly. Lord knows. Lord, tell him. Okay. Oh, but that's the one thing I wanted to say was the band thing and the suffering, because with the reading today at Lauds had to do with sharing the sufferings of others. And we're going to get to the existence of God and the problem of evil. And why do I believe in God? I thought that might be an interesting question to start the show off. Why do you believe in God, Craig? I had this girl come up to me in Sideshow Tramps days back at Helios, which y'all don't know what it is, doesn't matter. It's a place we used to play in Houston. And this girl, she was super awesome too. Like, if she watches this, she'll know I'm talking about her. She was, at the time, I think a senior at the High School of Performing and Video, High School of Performing and Visual Arts. It's like a high flute and fancy, smart people, artsy school, high school, right? She was a senior, and she would come to the shows, and she was like, she was atheist, and she was like, "Why do you believe in God?" And I said, "Well, that's a big, long question, too long of a question to talk about on the back porch of a bar with people coming in and out, and I'm about to have to go up and play another set." She goes, "I just don't get it, though." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Well, you're cool." Like, in her mind, like, there's girls all around. You're cool. You've got a fun band. You can have fun. After the shows, we would always go do an after party, you know? That reminds me of, and she was like, "How can you have all that and still believe in God and be celibate?" You know? It sounded ridiculous to her. And so why do I, Craig Kinsey, believe in God? As we're going to talk about in Article 2, can you demonstrate the existence of God? And also the problem of evil, which is in Article 3. There's evil in the world, therefore God should not exist. So we'll get to that. But why do I personally believe? Well, it's, again, too long of a thing to address, but I'll just say to answer this girl's question. And also it made me think of something else I heard Fratty say. I don't know if he'd like me saying Fratty, but he says it all the time. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But he like boldly said, and this is one of the things I love the guy for. He was like boldly said, okay, I think he was talking to Kreeft about what's your perfect day? What would be a perfect day? And you know, you get certain food, and Kreeft had his idea, and it always ends though with marital intimacy, right? I mean, that's got to be in there somewhere if we're talking about the perfect day. And I'm trying to find this readings from morning prayer in case I want to refer to it. So anyway, Frad said something like, what my perfect day used to be, you know, before Christ enlightened him, right? He said his perfect day was sitting in a jacuzzi with naked women playing video games. Because, you know, that's your favorite thing. And then you got the naked women and you got the jacuzzi. And I thought to myself, well, I've already done that, except I wasn't playing no video games. Right. we were playing music and doing other things. And it was outdoors, and the cops showed up, and people were running nude through the flashing cop lights. It was very interesting. But that was the kind of life that I did have. So this girl was like, you can have all of this. So how can you shrink down to a pitiful little pruny belief in God, the fantasy sky daddy. Because she'd been so shellacked by the world and the devil and the lies and stuff. Like what people believe about God and what it is and everything. It's everything you see in the news, in the media, in movies. It's a whole big. That's what she thought everything was. So my belief in God, I guess, has to do with um, had an experience. There's always like I was saying yesterday. There has to be an experience. There has to be a wooing. Um, you know what? Let me get to my experience after just reading the objections to reply, objection 2 and 3, and then we'll go to my experience after that because I've already talked enough. How much time have I yammered on?
I don't remember how much. Looking at
Oh, because we didn't start at 7:15.
Maybe like 5 minutes, maybe like 10.
That's not too bad.
That's not for
I've yammered
yammering.
more.
Oh, for sure. We had like a 25-minute on our second
Yammer
day.
session. Yeah. But I think the second day was beavers and a galleon. So don't.
Doesn't
Yeah.
get started, but it's not an invitation.
I was thinking more about beavers on a galleon this morning in the restroom.
Question 2.
Reply to objection 2. Here we go. Thomas Aquinas has this to say. I wonder if this thing will work. Perhaps not everyone who hears this word God understands it to signify something that which nothing greater can be thought, seeing that some have believed God to be a body. That's Thomas kind of being funny. Again, he's like, perhaps some people, because remember the previous thing, the ontological argument, God is that which nothing greater can be conceived. And his essence is existence. He is existence itself. So you cannot think of this being without thinking of him existing. Whereas you can think of a unicorn as not existing. You can think of Zeus as not existing. You can even think of Joe, God forbid, as not existing. You don't have to exist. It's not part of Jonas that he exists. Like, let's say there was a world, let's say Gandalf really existed. Just imagine that all the Lord of the Rings is not real, except for this one guy, Gandalf. Tolkien patterned it after Gandalf. Just like the dude in The Big Lebowski is actually patterned off of the Coen brothers' friend, this guy. It's like he's a real guy. They just put him in this movie because he's so funny, and they were like, I got to have this guy. But there's a real the dude. Well, just imagine if there was a real Gandalf. And then Tolkien's like, oh, I have to put this. He's a professor at a school, and he's just smokes his pipe, and he wears his hat, and he's like, he's just a weird dude. I got to put him in my novel. So you could imagine Gandalf existing. He does in this thought experiment. He really does exist, but he doesn't have to exist. He's still Gandalf, as is shown by the fact that he doesn't really exist, and he's a character in Tolkien's novel. But this word God, G-O-D, what is meant by that word is that which nothing higher can be conceived, and whose essence is existence. His definition is existence. So you can't think of this thing, this G-O-D, without thinking of necessary existence. He must exist. That's kind of the root of the ontological argument. So Thomas is taking up that theme again and saying, perhaps not everyone who hears this word God understands it to signify something than which nothing greater can be thought, seeing that some people have believed God to be a body. He's saying, look, there are some people, he's like, guys, because remember, he's talking to all these students at the University of Paris. He's like, guys, hey, Joe, there's some people who believe God has a body. So since that exists, surely there's people who don't understand that this word G-O-D refers to that which nothing greater can be conceived. He's like doing a little, smarty pants guy laugh. But it's merited because you have these guys, like, I don't want to pick on the new atheists, but when I heard them at first, I was like, they don't know anything about G-O-D except for sock puppet like elementary school stuff. Now, of course, Alex O'Connor, who I often refer to because I think the guy's cool and smart and he does things well. Now he knows what's up. He's starting to learn, right? He's starting to get stuff, and his brilliant mind is asking good questions. As I said previously in one of the videos, that Christians couldn't ask the good questions; they were afraid to. So, like the Passover Seder, we have the kid who says, "Why do you do this?" instead of "Why do we do this?" Alex O'Connor is like that kid in the world, seeing the Passover Seder of this present milieu of life on Earth. He's asking the good questions. Now he's asking it, "Why do you?" not "Why do we do this?" because he's atheist. But we got to get this guy back on the team, man. We got to have our good players. That's the problem with what happened. Joe's walking around, so I'm kind of watching Joe. We've got to have our good players back on the team. What happened was all the good players, all the smart people, and good, like reasonable people, they all got tired of church and all the goofy stuff, and they were like, "We're getting out of here. We're jumping off this beaver boat." You know what I'm saying? Can you blame them though? Like if the beavers start acting stupid, you want to get off the beaver boat. If when Larry, when Larry starts eating the mast, you're like, sorry, Joe. When Larry starts eating the mast, you want to, when you see it's happening, you're like, I got to get off this boat. That's what the atheists, in my opinion, have done. They're like, these people have gone bonkers. But here's what happened. The woke thing, that's all those church people that left church. They brought church bonkers out into sinful world bonkers, and we got double bonkers. Like, ask any woke person, did you used to go to church? Rarely will you find one who didn't. Seriously, go at any woke person, say, did you used to go to church? And then ask them, at least in America, and ask them, how was it? Oh, it was great. It was beautiful. They would pick us up on Sunday in the bus, and it was joy. And then they taught us such deep, intricate teachings, you know. They grew us up in philosophy and history. No, they don't say that. They say it was silly, and Pastor so-and-so did this with the organist, and it was chaos. And we got home, and my mom yelled at me and told me that God wants you to shut up and sit down. That's what happened. And so these guys all left church, and insipid, boring, stupid, and they brought their brilliant minds and their good hearts out into the world. We need you back. Come on. Okay. Yet, granted that everyone understands that by this word God is signified something which nothing greater can be thought, nevertheless, it does not therefore follow that he understands that what the word signifies exists actually, but only that it exists mentally. He's saying just because the guy will admit it, let's say he doesn't think God's a body. He's not a plebeian. Cool. He's not a plebeian, right? He understands what the Christian means, what the Jew means when he says the word God. He understands that. But that still doesn't mean that he believes it, but only that it exists mentally, not actually. Nor can it be argued that it actually exists unless it be admitted that there actually exists something than which nothing greater can be thought. And this precisely is not admitted by those who hold that God does not exist. So Thomas again is kind of making that break from what my buddy Mark McNeil said is more Augustinian thought and Bonaventure, that you can come to the knowledge of God by, and I don't know, I feel uncomfortable saying that because I feel like if Augustine and Bonaventure were here, they would agree with Thomas. But anyway, whatever. Don't need to get into the weeds, as we have said. This is just a quick flyover of Thomas. So he's saying, yeah, no, he's replying to Ralph. He's like, yeah, Ralph, no, they just because even if they do understand that God is that which nothing higher can be conceived and that his essence is existence, they still may not adhere to it with their heart. The fool said in his heart, there is no God. And then objection 3, Shimon. The existence of truth in general is self-evident, but the existence of a primal truth is not self-evident. Remember, the objection 3 was that all people have a, where is objection 3? Where did he go? Further, the existence of truth is self-evident. For whoever denies, he goes into the thing that as soon as you say there is no truth, you've just said that statement, there is no truth, is true. It's what Dr. Rebard from the University of St. Thomas would call self-referentially inconsistent. The thing you're saying defeats itself. As soon as you say there is no truth, you've just spoken a word that you presume to be truth. And so you're saying that there's truth by saying that there's no truth. It's self-referentially inconsistent. Another favorite one of mine, and I haven't heard a lot of people say this, it's got to be in the book somewhere, but Descartes, his thing was that we can never know truth from our senses, like one of the points he's trying to get through. And his example for that is a straw in a glass. You put the straw in the glass and it looks like the straw is broken. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Everybody's seen that. And he says, see, your eyes are lying to you. Well, that's self-referentially inconsistent. Because how can you know your eyes are lying unless you know the straw's really not broken? Maybe the straw is, maybe when you put it in water, it's the nature of being on this earth that as soon as you put a straw in water, it goes poof, it separates. I mean, stranger things have happened. A worm turning into a flying butterfly, that's weird. A little drop from the man turning into a new human that goes out and writes music, that's weird. So that a straw would separate is not that big a deal. So maybe that is what's happening. But he knows that's not what's happening, because all you got to do is run your finger down it and you can feel that it's not broken. Or just suck through the straw and know that it's not broken. So saying that your senses lie to you is self-referentially inconsistent. You're using your senses to show that it's a lie or that it's not. So I don't know Descartes, but we're not talking about Descartes right now. Even though all this ties together, this is something I really want to show in this quick flyover. If you've never studied philosophy, if you've never read Thomas, if you've never really studied theology, which you should if you're a Christian, like what are you doing? What are you doing with your, as St. John of the Cross says, what are we doing with our time? You know all the characters of such and such Netflix series, but you don't, just think about it. I'm not getting down on people. I'm just trying to get down on people. It's 2025, people. You saw what happened in 2020. We need to get on the ball, on the game here. Start doing lauds, start doing vespers, pray your rosary, study. All right, so anyway, the existence of truth in general is self-evident, but the existence of a primal truth is not self-evident. He's saying that we can know that there is such thing as truth, but that there is this primal truth, and he capitalized it, which means he's referring to God, whatever this thing is, that's the source of all this effects that we're seeing, the cause of all these effects, God. All right, Article 2, whether it can be demonstrated that God exists. And this is where we're going to get our awesome objection that God can't exist because of evil, right? As Mark McNeil has stressed to me, when Thomas uses the word demonstrated, he's using it demonstratum, very, very specific and very rigorous. Okay, so there's thoughts that could come to you. Convenience, which we spoke about yesterday, where it's something's fitting or reasonable. Like someone sees the dead trees in the winter, and then they know in spring it's going to birth, and they're like, that maybe is a telling of the resurrection from the dead. That makes sense. It's not a demonstration that there's a resurrection from the dead. And it's also, and a demonstration, in my mind, is not a proof. A proof is when Jesus walks through the wall and says, come here, Thomas, touch my hand, put your finger in my side. That's a proof. These are two different things. But a demonstration is still a logical, reasoned explanation that makes a great deal of sense. And it's much stronger than a convenience or a reasonable fitting thing like the tree that looks dead coming to life. Therefore, we believe that there'll be a resurrection. These are different levels of approaching a truth. And demonstration is a very strong one. And when Thomas says demonstration, He's trying to give a very strong demonstration that there is a God, and it can be done rationally. But again, it's not a proof, nor is it a conversion. Because remember, Satan knows all this stuff is true. Is he converted? Just because you show it's true doesn't mean there's a conversion. Jesus could walk through the wall and show himself to an atheist right now, and the atheist might be like, good, I'm glad you showed up because I want to tell you how much now I've got God in my grip. And why did you even do things this way? Just because you prove that there's God doesn't mean you've changed someone's heart at all. It could be worse. That's one of the reasons he hides. It's worse. He's hiding and giving people, as Peter said, a chance. St. Peter, the Pope, first Pope, Apostle Peter, he's giving people the chance to change and repent gently, graciously, through a great deal of time of your whole life. Okay. Article 2, whether it can be demonstrated that God exists. Objection 1, here comes Larry. It seems that the existence of God cannot be demonstrated. For it is an article of faith that God exists. But what is of faith cannot be demonstrated, because a demonstration produces scientific knowledge, whereas faith is of the unseen, Hebrews 11. Therefore, it cannot be demonstrated that God exists. All right. Good one, Larry. And we'll see what Thomas says in a minute. Objection 2, so saith Ralph. Further, the essence is the middle term of demonstration, but we cannot know in what God's essence consists, but solely in what it does not consist, as Damascene says. And he's referring to this earlier thing. Ralph is bringing up the same argument. Alexa, shut up. Please. But we cannot know. I said please because I had this girl I was hanging out with once, and I would talk to my Siri, and I would say please and thank you. And she goes, I like that you say please and thank you to your Siri. But I don't always sometimes tell her to shut up.
I'm really rude to those.
Huh?
I'm really rude to those. If
Are
they
you
rise
rude
up,
to those
I'm
fake
gonna-
people?
I'm totally done.
Yeah.
They want me dead for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice, but anyway. Further, the essence is the middle term of demonstration, but we cannot know in what God's essence consists, but solely in what it does not consist, as Damascene says. Therefore, we cannot demonstrate that God exists. That's the same kind of thing Ralph was saying before. The middle term is God's essence. Middle term being a syllogism. Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, Socrates is mortal. If you don't know what that middle term man means, then you can't make a coherent syllogism. And so what Ralph keeps harping on is we don't know the middle term. We've already said that you can't know the essence of God. He's transcendent, he's above human knowing, therefore you can't even know what you're talking about. And what Thomas, and that's why we're repeating this over and over and over, so that it sinks in to you and to me. I'm restudying this after years of not studying and doing this on stage. I'm coming back and refreshing. But you can't know the essence of God, therefore you can't have a middle term, therefore you can't demonstrate anything. And Thomas is going to address that again. Shimon, objection 3. Further, if the existence of God were demonstrated, this could only be from his effects. But his effects are not proportionate to him, since he is infinite and his effects are finite. And between the finite and infinite, there is no proportion. Therefore, since a cause cannot be demonstrated by an effect not proportionate to it, it seems that the existence of God cannot be demonstrated. Now, we're going to see what Thomas says. I'm a little fuzzy on that right here. I should have talked to Mark more about this one. Therefore, since a cause cannot be demonstrated by an effect not proportionate to it. I'm not exactly sure what we're getting at there. We'll dig in deeper. That's another thing about the Daily Summa. I can make a little note. Ask Mark, ask Dr. Rebard about this and get a more clear picture of a precise thing. And then say it the next day. That's why you should watch the Daily Summa daily, so that your knowledge builds and so that your conversation is more intelligent, clear. I just opened myself up to saying, hadn't helped for you, buddy. Why should I? Huh? That's what Mary Kate should say. Is there anybody watching? So let's hear Thomas's on the contrary. On the contrary, the apostle says the invisible things of him are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. But this would not be unless the existence of God could be demonstrated through the things that are made. For the first thing we must know of anything is whether it exists. That's fair. First thing we should know is this that's one of the first things people ask you when you start a movie. Is this a true story? It makes a difference. Why? Why not just say, oh, it's a good story. I don't care if it's true or not. Whether the thing exists or not makes a big difference in your emotions, in your whole being, in how you think, and how you're going to respond to the world. You watch a movie that, like Erin Brockovich, I think was a movie in the 80s or 90s. I don't know. Julia Roberts played her. But she was a lawyer. She was a woman who I guess I think she was a server, like at a restaurant. And then she decided to get a law degree or something. I don't know. It's been a while since I watched a movie. But if you know that that's true, and it is, you're like, wow, I want to meet this person. Or wow, maybe I could be a lawyer. But if it's not true, you're going to be, eh. So it's that something exists makes a big difference in reality. And that's something you should ponder. Why is that? If everything's just nominalism, if truth and reality don't matter, then why does it make such a big difference? Thomas is going to go on and say, I answered that. Let's go to the rational part of it. Should I tell my thing about why I believe in God towards the end of this? After this, I answer that part. I'll ask you again later. We'll see. We might push it on tomorrow.
Tomorrow you could also save it for that really short day.
Oh, yeah. That tiny one-page day? Or we could have a fast day that day. Not fasting, but a quick day. I answer that demonstration can be made in two ways. One is through the cause, and it's called a priori, and that is to argue from what is prior, absolutely. The other is through the effect, and it's called a demonstration a posteriori. Just like a posterior, it's after the effect, that which comes after. A posteriori. This is to argue from what is prior relatively only to us. When an effect is better known to us than its cause, from the effect we proceed to the knowledge of the cause. From the effect we proceed to the knowledge of the cause. You walk into the room downstairs. Let's say we go downstairs and you see, I was going to say something. You see something on the pool table. A brown curled up something on top of the pool table. Okay. And then you're like, the cat was in here. You know that for two reasons. One, because it looks like cat crap. Two, because the dog can't jump up on the table and it doesn't look like that when the dog does it. There's certain, I can't believe I'm using this as the example.
I don't know why you wasn't here,
but it's just funny. But by the effects, you reason back towards the cause and you know what it must be. We're talking about induction here. That's what Sherlock Holmes does so well. He sees clues and he reasons back to what the cause must be. They always say brilliant deduction, Watson, but it's really an induction. He's inducing. Inducing like labor. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I hear myself, and because it's like a live show and all that, I get a little, it's like being on stage. You're like not fully like you would be if you're alone. You're not fully concentrated because part of you is out there somewhere. Like when you're on stage, a big part of you is out there and you can't think quite as clearly. All right. And from every effect, the existence of its proper cause can be demonstrated, so long as its effects are better known to us. Because since every effect depends upon its cause, if the effect exists, the cause must pre-exist. I think that's obvious. Hence, the existence of God, insofar as it is not self-evident to us, can be demonstrated from those of his effects which are known to us. So Thomas again is setting up his demonstration that he's going to use from causality, that there is a God. And he's going to talk about different types of causality in that we can know it from the things we're seeing. But he's saying you don't just know it immediately by seeing the world, that God exists. Reply to objection 1. The existence of God and other like truths about God which can be known by natural reason are not articles of faith, but are preambles to the articles. For faith presupposes natural knowledge. This is again, grace builds on nature. The faith, the articles of our faith are not just out of the blue. They depend on knowledge that we have naturally, just like Aristotle reasoned that there is an unmovable mover, and that thing we call God, but we don't know what it is. Aristotle doesn't know what it is. It's just he reasons back from cause and effect that there must be something that started everything, or else nothing makes sense. Nothing is scientific. Now, that thing which caused all these causes must be of some kind of essence or nature that's different than matter or material, because the material world works by cause and effect. The pool table down there, the balls, when you hit the ball, boom, 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 they move by certain laws. That's how things work. That's how science works. You can't just say, well, it just happened. Like if you were to walk in, you have kids, right? You walk in and there's like spilled, huh? You walk in and there's spilled stuff all over, milk is spilled all over the floor. And the kid says, it just happened. We don't believe that because we know the world doesn't work that way. I watched that comedian. I can't remember her name. She's like a new comedian coming on the scene and she interviews people. Do you remember who I'm talking about? She interviews people like it's very serious and they think.
Yeah, I saw somebody today.
What is her name? She's so great. Women like that who are funny and sarcastic like that, immediate attraction. Immediate attraction. It's like Mother Natalia said, her love language is sarcasm. And she's good at it, and I'm good at it, and it's wonderful. That kind of sarcasm. But this woman interviewed a scientist, right? And I don't know exactly who he is, but she goes like this. She says, who's responsible for the Big Bang? And he says, we don't know. And she goes, well, how did it happen? Something like that. And he says, well, it just happened. That's his scientific answer. Right. It just happened. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's like Raymond saying, the spilt milk, and it just happened. We don't believe that. And so Aristotle reasons, but there must be something that started this, the essence of which, or the character of which, is not material, not bound to this same cause and effect thing. We don't know what that is, and we call it God. But that's the philosophical God. Of course, the Christian premise is that, and the Jewish premise is that this thing, this unmovable mover, whatever it is, it spoke to Abraham, it spoke to Moses, and then it incarnated in the Virgin Mary's womb and spoke to us by word and by horrific deed, allowing himself to be crucified. Not a big fan, but not a big fan of crucifixion, just to be clear. I love Jesus, we have problems. We have a little lover spat over this cross thing. It's like, when a husband and wife argue and the husband says, no, we're going to pack up everything and move to some crappy little town that you can't drink the water. Yeah. That's how I feel about Jesus and the cross. He's like, no, it's going to be good. He's like, no, Craig, come try this thing. It's like the old Saturday Night Live skit with, I think, Tom Hanks, where Dad wakes up in the morning, and he goes in the kitchen, they're having breakfast, and he drinks the milk and it's sour, and he spits it everywhere. He's like, oh my gosh, this is awful. Here, honey, taste this. Like the first thing he does, and then she tastes it and spits it out. You're right, it's horrible. He gives it to the kid. The kid's like, I want to try. Kid drinks it, and everybody's spitting everywhere. It's such a natural thing, but that's like that's how the cross seems to me. The Lord's like, "No, no, this is good. This is just come check it out." I kind of don't want to. Okay. Just to be honest, Lord, I don't want to drink the milk. I trust you. I trust you. That's why it was so much better when I was fundamentalist. Jesus did it all. You don't have to do anything. Don't have to follow him. Don't have to take up your cross. He paid the price. I could get behind that. Those were good times, man. Okay. They were also bad. A reply to objection 1, I think, is where we are. So, existence of God, I'll start at the beginning, and other like truths about God can be known by natural reason are not articles of faith, but are preambles to the articles. For faith presupposes natural knowledge, even as grace presupposes nature, and perfection supposes something that can be perfected. The word perfection doesn't mean anything unless there's something that can be perfected. It would just be a floating term out in nothingness. Nevertheless, there is nothing to prevent a man who cannot grasp a proof accepting as a matter of faith something which in itself is capable of being scientifically known and demonstrated. Thomas is just saying, look, someone may not be able to follow our demonstration that we're about to give of causality. I mean, it's a little difficult to follow, but that doesn't mean that they can't still have faith. They can still believe through different means. And God's totally cool with that. Atheists aren't. They're like, that's stupid. You're an idiot. But they're not an idiot. They've fallen in love with something, which makes us all idiots. Idiots makes love. Love makes fools of us all. So saith the poet. Reply to objection 2. When the existence of a cause is demonstrated from an effect, this effect takes the place of the definition of the cause and proof of the cause's existence. So you see the movement of the balls on the pool table. You don't know. There was an example I was going to give, and I'm just going to have to give it. Let me read through this, and then I'll give this new example. This is especially the case in regard to God, because in order to prove the existence of anything, it is necessary to accept as a middle term the meaning of the word, and not its essence. For the question of its essence follows on the question of its existence. Now, the names given to God are derived from his effects. Consequently, in demonstrating the existence of God from his effects, we may take for the middle term the meaning of the word God. He's saying that, Thomas is saying that, okay, we can't know the essence of God. I'll give you that. But we're going to substitute the middle for the essence, the middle term, all these effects that we see of God that kind of tell us what he's like. That's what we're getting at here. It kind of tells us what he's like. It's like you might not know, I don't know Bob Dylan. I don't know the guy, but I know effects. I know things he's written. I know videos that I've seen of stuff he's done, but that's still just he knows the camera's on. That's him acting, and he knows the camera's on, or that's his song that he's particularly worked at to carve in this way. So I don't know the essence of Bob Dylan, really. I don't really know the guy, but I can know a lot about him. I can know how he's different than Donald Trump. I can comprehend how he's different than Michael Jordan. Like, he's different, but I don't know the essence of it. And Thomas is saying, okay, we can't know the essence of God, but there are certain things we get to know about him, especially from the revelation that comes from Mount Sinai, and especially from the revelation that comes through Mashiach, when he demonstrated himself in the most accessible language possible, and that is semiotically acting out what he is in front of us with symbols. The last one being the cross, which we don't like, but I guess we're going to have to get over it. Okay, the example I was going to use with cause and effect is, let's say I have 3 different kinds of orbs, like balls, orbs. We like that word, right? Orbs. It's a good word. I have 3 different kind of orbs, and I'm going to roll them across the pool table. We set up the pool balls, and we rack them, and they're in the triangle. And I'm going to break, but I'm going to do it with 3 different kinds of orbs. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what the 3 different kind are, but one, you walk in, I break, and you walk in, and there's a what's something that's round but's all nasty and wet and smushy and well, when we go back to poo, what about some of those mushrooms? There's like things that grow like a mushroom and they become very wet and full of mold. Okay, you walk in, you see the pool table. I take the mushroom, I take the orb away, but you walk in and you see that it's wet. There's some residual mold things that have fallen on, and you see a squish of water on that first ball, and it moves. They've moved a little bit. That's what you see when you walk in, but you don't see the mushroom that I used to break. Okay. Now, second, I use the cue ball. You walk in, everything's broke like normal, but you don't see the cue ball there. Third, I use a cannonball that I've had in a hot fire for 5 hours. I take that cannonball and I roll it. So now you walk in and you see burnt, and maybe even when the cannonball was first placed down, the slate under the pool table broke. So you see this break, and then you see fire, and then you see the balls just smushed in a like an aisle, like something's just rolled, hammered through it with momentum and force, but slowly. You will know, you maybe won't know what all these things are, but you can kind of say, this is something, or the first one is something organic. The first one was wet. You might even be able to reason back if you're really smart and you go often in the woods. You're like, maybe this is a mushroom. Maybe you can get to it. Are you seeing anything cool?
No.
And then you get the idea. The last one, this must have been hot. It must have been large. So you're reasoning back to the cause. Even though you don't know what the cause is, you can kind of get to it a little bit by its effects. Now, that's what happens with people of prayer. And that's what God's inviting us to. The more that Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, you and me meditate on these things that God has shown us in the person of Christ, in the cross and in prayer, the more you do that, the more your mind just begins to click in an intuitive grasp, not an intellectual, but an intuitive grasp of what this thing, God, must be like. You get these insights. Sometimes it can be terrifying. Teresa of Avila talks about your consciousness like a catapult flying out and up, that God zips you up real quick, and that this can be a terrifying experience, and then you come back into your body. But if you still yourself and you become quiet and you begin to meditate and pray on the principles of the faith that we're learning here and the things that Christ did and the Blessed Mother, you will more and more deeply enter into the life of that dove under the staircase, hidden in the cleft of the rock. And other people won't be able to see it. You're just at the grocery store buying some mushrooms and some carrots, but inside, the little dove is there in a warm bath of blissful fire of contemplation and presence of God. And that's our goal here. Remember, this is all straw, people. This is all straw. This is all blah, blah, blah. It's supposed to lead you to contemplation.
That's about 47 minutes.
All right, I'm going to zip through this, man. We'll get more to cause and effect tomorrow. Reply from objection 3. From effects not proportionate to the cause, no perfect knowledge of that cause can be obtained. Yet, from every effect, the existence of the cause can be clearly demonstrated, just like the things on the orbs on the pool table. And so we can demonstrate the existence of God from his effects, though from them we cannot perfectly know God as he is in his essence. That's what I just said. But you can start to slowly get an intuition of it. And this is the invitation that God gives us to prayer, to deeper and deeper prayer. Article 3, whether God exists. And this is the one I've read over and over, so I'll just do it real quick. Objection 1, it seems that God does not exist, because if one of two contraries be infinite, the other would be altogether destroyed. But the word God means that he is infinite goodness. If therefore God exists, there would be no evil discoverable, but there is evil in the world, therefore God does not exist. And we'll get to Thomas's answer finally, probably tomorrow. Reply to objection 1, maybe. And then objection 2, further, it is superfluous to suppose that what can be accounted for by a few principles has been produced by many, but it seems that everything we see in the world can be accounted for by other principles. Supposing God did not exist, for all natural things can be reduced to one principle, which is nature, and all voluntary things can be reduced to one principle, which is human reason or will. Therefore, there is no need to suppose that God exists. Another very good argument from Ralph about how God doesn't exist. And tomorrow we will hear what Thomas has to say to them. Peace, everybody. Have a good feast day. Joy to you, and adios.